Welcome into One Shining Podcast. It is Monday. It is the night of the national championship game. And right now we have the Jim Nantz line that we have all been waiting for quite some time. His last line, the Huskies have had their dreams come true, and they win their fifth national championship since 1999. I am joined, of course, by Kyle Mann. And Kyle Mann, this was not the most scintillating game that we've ever seen in the national title game. But first and foremost, what are your initial reactions to what we just witnessed?
I mean, the big thing that the game itself obviously wasn't. Well, before I get going, I just wanted to make it really clear that if it's COVID, Paxlovid, and also it's important to me that I got that in there. But I think that like one of the big things for me is your mind just kind of goes to the big picture thing for UConn, just because of how. I don't know. This game kind of felt like it was a little tedious at times. We got in the bonus, I think, with like 14 minutes left in the second half. And when that was happening, I was like, oh, boy, this is going to be a little bit of a slog. I think you just kind of have to drift towards the macro questions here, Tate, which are we kind of tease what this could mean if UConn won this game. You know, their fifth title since 1999, and they've done it now under three coaches in Calhoun and Kevin Ollie and now Dan Hurley. That, I think, is the big takeaway from this. I mean, aside from we can get into the weeds of how well built this UConn team was, and I think that that's definitively a fact, and that they were good throughout the year. I don't know. And in some level, too, it makes me feel like we sort of looked away from them for a moment, despite the fact that they were dominant at different times during this year. But no, the big picture stuff is the thing where my mind goes. It's just it's really phenomenal that they've had 5 trips to the title game and won all 5. That's an incredible batting average.
I think that's the unfortunately, right? We just watched the national championship game, and immediately we go to the larger narrative of what this means for UConn, the program, because we know UConn basketball, and obviously we know the women's team with Gino Auriemma. I mean, they've been doing this for quite some time. They know how to win basketball games. But when Calhoun won in 1999, they beat a Duke team that had lost one game all year. They were, Duke was the favorite by 8 points. It was one of the bigger upsets in national championship history, and weirdly kind of gets brushed under the rug for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because, Mr. K has so many, soldiers in the media world. But regardless, we don't talk about that game enough. We don't talk about Calhoun enough. But when they won that game, it put everyone, kind of on the map. And also, weirdly, in that tournament, Gonzaga, that was their first moment where they said, hey, we're going to be a team that's going to be in the conversation moving forward. And the difference between those two programs as you forecast and look at the 21st century is simply this. When UConn gets to the title game, UConn wins 5-0. It is unmatched. And if you go back and you look at the teams that they played, that is the time, when you are, if you're one of us, right, you might be able to poke, a few holes. Obviously, they beat Duke in 99. Amazing. The Georgia Tech team that they played in 2004, I mean, Georgia Tech was great that year. Jared Jack is their point guard. You got some stars on their team. B.J. Elder, Luke Sincher, right? But they go up.
Luke Sincher doesn't do it for you, Tate? Were you not a big Luke Sincher guy?
I saw them, funny enough, Kyle, man. I was in New York for the NIT preseason tournament with my family, and we ran into the entire Georgia Tech team out, and they were at the Foot Locker in Times Square, and Luke Sincher signed my T-shirt. So at that point in time, I said, I'm a Luke Sincher guy. I was locked in for Paul Hewitt. I thought they could actually win that championship. But then I came back to reality and said, oh, my God, this team has Ben Gordon and Emeka Okafor, right? So they dominate that game, as we all saw and all witnessed. But weirdly, in the back of your mind, when you see Georgia Tech in the title game, you're kind of like tonight. You're just like, I can't close my eyes and see them as the national champions. The next time they get to the title game is 2011, right? They play Butler, who is without Gordon Hayward. I think a lot of people in our memories, right, they think that the Gordon Hayward 2010 game against Duke was also the UConn game in 2011. So I want to point out this was the Shelvin Mack team that they played in with Matt Howard. So they win that game. 2014, Kevin Ollie, right, goes up against an 8 seed, your Kentucky Wildcats, who, kind of just took the 1 seed path and they overachieved in that tournament. And it led to the 2015, superstar platoon system that we saw. So they get that one, of course. That's 4-0. And then tonight you play San Diego State, a 5 seed, and a 5 seed has never won in the national championship game. And we had 2 5 seeds in the Final Four. And guess what? UConn played both of them and beat both of them pretty handily. So, if you look at it by just the bare bones of the situation, UConn since 1999, yes, you're a blue blood, right? You're 5-0, 5 championships. You check the box. When you get into the nuance a little bit, you can maybe, talk your way into some of these arguments where, hey, the tournament fell their way, yada, yada, yada. But you play who's in front of you. And, my initial reaction to this game is, wow, we have to talk about UConn in a different light now. We really do. And Dan Hurley, at this point, he is going to be someone that's a central figure in college basketball moving forward.
Yeah, and if you're not counting like the Helms titles, I know that's something you and I have never gotten into, but I'm sure we will at some point. Kyle started laughing like he knew about that one already, so that's good.
1924, I still claim it.
Well, that's your business, Tate. As a man of integrity, we'll legislate your integrity later. But no, I mean, like they're freaking 3 titles away from Kentucky, something that Kentucky fans are super proud of. You guys have some floating amorphous abstract number, I don't know, but they're gaining on a lot of people because of their success. And I think something too is just like, is your program tied to the success of one coach, or can they step forward in the aftermath of that legendary coach? We're going to see if that happens with Syracuse. We're going to see if that happens with Duke. I figure it probably will, but these are programs that have kind of like, they are established sort of intergalactic brands that can withstand, they're bigger than one person. And, for a minute there, we saw them wobble a little bit, and in their wobbliness, they stole another title. They didn't steal this one. Some people took offense to me like using the stole the title thing. It just means you swooped in a year where like maybe a favorite dropped or something. They're legitimate titles. But, they won in 2014. But
2014 was the prohibitive Florida year, right? Everyone was saying that Florida was going to win that year. It felt like 2011, there was like an Ohio State contingent. They were going to win with their, right? Like every one of those years, there was a de facto team that you expect. And then I was like, oh, here's UConn. And this year we kept, trying to figure out who that team was. And Purdue was the de facto team, but we all had our question marks. And just like, as is tradition, here comes UConn.
Yeah. And it's like they kind of, after they won that title, it was kind of that thing where you have early success with a coach that maybe you're not totally in love with. I mean, you see this happen sometimes. Tate, you might be going through that right now in North Carolina.
Mike Davis at Indiana, potentially Hubert Davis at North Carolina now.
Yeah, it can kind of just like a prolonged relationship maybe that has a shorter shelf life than it seemed. But, Ollie is out of there by 2017-18. Hurley comes in. First couple seasons are, the first one, he doesn't even crack 500 at 16-17. The second one, they 19-12. But slowly they start to kind of build some momentum. He makes the tournament by year 3. And then he just kind of pieces together a team that is very modern in philosophy. This is a team that used movement shooting. They were very clever about, balancing the dynamic of like Sanogo, who throughout this game and throughout this tournament was just unbelievable at doing early work on the block and sealing. And man, once he seals you, you are dead. They might as well, like if Sanogo seals you, they might as well just like stop the action and come and put his defender in a coffin on the court because that person is deceased. They are a former player. They have ceased to be. And like he throughout this game just was burying people. And you saw Jordan Hawkins. It's just maddening, man. It's maddening when you're worrying about the size of that play of a player like that. And then you have to just like at any moment, even if you guard Jordan Hawkins well, 80% of the time, he might bust you for 3 or 4 threes, and they're demoralizing. And I think this team, throughout this game, I think Clark Kellogg hit it. He made a point about the fact that, like, throughout this tournament, San Diego State has been able to pull people into the muck and force them to play an uncomfortable style. UConn was comfortable with that. They could be pulled, like you saw them throughout this game just kind of get easy baskets while San Diego State just struggled and struggled and struggled. But this was a really well-built basketball team, and I just was really impressed with them throughout this tournament.